Hey everybody, welcome back to Recordology. This is going to be a fun show. As I've been sort of formulating this show in my head throughout the last 24 hours, I'm getting more and more excited to share with you this really cool record player that we reviewed. It's actually been more like a year and a half, not just a year ago, back in 2020. I can't believe that was a year and a half ago. And it's been a cool player, but it's kind of some bumps along the way, literally, and it's been an interesting record player. So we're going to take a 1 year later review. I'm going to let you know what my thoughts are. Do I still like it? Apparently I do to some degree, but there have been issues. I'll share that with you as well. We may have a few surprises in the video, but stay tuned to the end because there's sort of a sad update I need to give on this turntable, but there is a silver lining. But anyway, guys, stay tuned. You're not going to want to miss this.
This is Recordology.
If you find yourself increasingly interested in this device and want to see more, first of all, thank you. Second of all, we did a full review video, a full unboxing and review video. I'll put a link in the description for that as well. So I've had it, a year and a half, and I love it. I will go ahead and skip to the chase. It's great. I'm going to show you why. There has been a couple issues that we'll look at in a little bit of detail. We'll also run it through its paces, see if it's still on track for speed, consistency, etc., as well as a sound test, of course. But first, let's talk about the size. It's big. It's really big. And for scale, I've got a Crosley Cruiser on top of it. You can see it's much larger than that. If I turn it sideways, you can see it is a beefy boy. It is a solid unit, and it is a portable. And for people that think that this is all Crosley makes for portables, you would be hopefully happily mistaken. But yeah, here it is. It is a portable, but it is so big. It has two handles, one on each side, and you could lift it like that, or you can lift it by one side. It has these sort of neoprene kind of TPU type of plastic. I guess that's too plastic. We'll go with TPU. This is more of a TPU type of plastic material, and brass colored metal hardware that seems to be good and sturdy. Let me take a step back on this. What is this unit? Why does it look the way it does? It has some history, some heritage that I want to talk about. The Crosley Danzett Jr. is an homage to a series of record players, portable record players that were very popular in the UK in the 1950s and the 1960s. If you were a youngster, a teenager, during that time in that region, it would be likely that you or one of your friends would have a Danzett portable record player. Some of them were more portable than others, and the Danzett Jr. was actually one of the original models that looks strikingly similar to this. And Crosley has released these a few years ago, and it's a cool way to relive pretty much the same experience, albeit with some modern, features and updates we'll look at in a minute. As I alluded to a minute ago, this is a phenomenal portable, and they have a lot of great portables. It's got a magnetic cartridge. It tracks lightly, which we'll demonstrate in a minute. It won't damage anything. It is fantastic. And Danzett actually set the standard, the original Danzett, for what portable record players would be like in the 50s and 60s. So, having the built-in speakers on the front, stereo speakers in this case, with on and off knobs and, input selects if there was one. There's some modern updates here. We've got an aux in, a headphone jack. There's a switch between the phono and aux in. But the basics, the groundwork was laid with the design of the original Danzett turntables. Each side has sort of this brass clip and this rubberized plastic TPU handle. And we swing around back. We've got these hinges and a familiar plastic input panel, or I should say, kind of. It's got a power input, 12 volts, and an output of audio. Interesting, they chose to make these RCA jacks flush. It does run on 12 volts, not 5. That's because of the magnetic cartridge and the amplifier, the preamp that's built in, all that good stuff. And of course, we've got the label. If we flip it on the bottom side, there's not much to see. It's a smooth surface. But this is a good look at that material some sort of, wrap, of course. And you can see if you look really carefully, the seam where this is bonded together, but it's done very, very well. This will be made out of an MDF or, particle board material wrapped in this synthetic leatherette type of material, but it does have nice leather grain. The feet are simply screwed in, rubberized plastic feet, and that's it for the exterior. Now we come to my first gripe, which really isn't even its own fault, and that's the fact that it is so large. It is so tempting to stack things on this, and I have to admit, you may see little imperfections here and there from when I have stacked things on here. And this type of material, which is a common, vinyl, I guess it is kind of a vinyl material, it nicks easily. There's little nicks here and there that, it's just inevitable that it's going to happen. So stacking things on here, while tempting, not recommended if you want to keep the finish perfect. All right, let's look under the hood here. And we are greeted with this mechanism. This is interesting use of it because it is not spring dampened whatsoever. I mean, there's a little bit here. So this has some rubber cushioning. I think that's all it has, is probably rubber grommet cushioning. But this mechanism is one that is used in a lot of the sort of next tier portables for Crosley. They all feature this Phillips basic design tone arm with this angled piece here. This is that's a metal tone arm with an adjustable counterweight that not a lot of people realize is adjustable, but it is. You can screw it forward and back, and there's no markings on it, so you have no idea. They use a Audio-Technica 3600L, so this tracks heavy-ish for a magnetic. So, you don't have to go super light. This doesn't need to track at 1.5 grams. In fact, it would be detrimental to your vinyl to do so. This is designed to track, 3.5, 4 grams, no problem whatsoever. They give you a sad little 45 adapter. And speaking of that, you know what? Speaking of that, check this out. This, if you watched our recent review video of the Twist and Shout record store, this is the Twist and Shout 45 adapter. So you can upgrade that bad boy. Oops, look at it. I wasn't sure if I'd be able to get it out because it sits flush. You can upgrade this quite easily. And you know what? I'm going to give this away. We're going to give actually a red one, but I'm going to give one of these away to one lucky winner. Here's how you do it. Right now, go over to, not right now. After you finish this video, you can pause this and do it right now. But go over to our TikTok, link in the description below. Find the most recent video that we have and comment simply with this. Just put in the number 73. 73, just so I know you saw it here. The first person that does that, I am going to send this adapter to, or one that looks just like it. So after you do that, send me an email, recordology1938@gmail.com. That's also in the description. And let me know that you did that. And I'll verify that, and I will send you out a 45 adapter. One winner only. But yeah, pretty cool. Hope you guys enjoy that. And I would like to get you guys over on the TikTok platform. Did a video yesterday on identifying. I put it over on our community, I put it on the shorts tab here as well. Just how to identify styrene versus vinyl, and it's going gangbusters over on TikTok. It's been really fun. So anyway, that's this mechanism here, and it's a 2-speed turntable, and we'll look at that down there in a minute. It also has the auto start and stop right here. It's pretty simple. It's a pretty simple device. And then if I adjust this so you can see in the lid, you see the Crosley branding, that same material. This does come in different colors. This is the cream and blue, which I think looks really sharp. I like it. Let's look a little closer at the platter and at the speed control. This is not a full-size platter, and as such, you wouldn't really want to put a platter mat on there. I've seen platter mats, like little felt ones or even rubber ones, but it's just unnecessary. It's got 3 little rubber nubs. 3 points of contact is the most stable, because with 4, it could wobble. But even if your record is warped even a tiny bit, it will be perfectly stable on these 3 rubber nubs. And a lot of people have a hard time wrapping their brain around that when they're coming from the world of full-size platters and full-size platter mats. This is a portable, and portable turntables aren't a bad thing. They have their own place in the vinyl world, and it won't do any damage to the record. The sound can be quite good, but there are differences. In this case, the difference is the platter. Now, the original Danzettes used a different type of platter. Although it was small like this, it was thick. It was a thick, hollow piece of metal, and it used what's called an idler drive. So whereas this is belt driven, there's an electric motor, I think it's right up here, and a rubber belt that goes under this to spin it. That used what's called an idler wheel. So there was like a rubberized wheel inside this hollow platter that the original had, and it would spin the inside of that platter. So it's a different technology. Dual turntables use it. We've reviewed a number of turntables with idler drive. And still our schoolroom record player that we have and we feature on the show from time to time is idler drive. So just a different technology. But one of the updates, as it were, I don't know if I'd go so far as to call it an upgrade, but an update to this version is the fact that it just features a belt drive mechanism. Now, down here we feature sort of a relic from an idler drive turntable system, and that is to have this type of switch for the speed control. There's a neutral point, which on this turntable isn't necessary, but an idler drive turntable needs a neutral point. And if this was an idler drive, that would pull the rubber wheel away from the side of the platter. And the reason why that's important is if it stays parked, pushed up against the platter, it can actually create a dent in the rubber, and then it doesn't spin smoothly because it's been sitting parked with a rubber dent in it. So those types of turntables have a neutral position that pulls the rubber away from the platter. This doesn't need that. So the zero position is simply an off. It does feature 2 speeds, 33 and 45. So it doesn't need this type of speed control. I'd say this is more of a design element than a functional one. Usually this mechanism has a 3-speed selector switch. Actually, you can see the cutout. Let me zoom in for it. You can see the cutout where that punch out would occur for that 3-speed selector switch. So, it is what it is. It works fine. By the way, since we're down close here, let's take a look at this cartridge. Again, it's a 3600 magnetic. It's a dual magnet cartridge. It's an entry-level cartridge, but it sounds good. You can upgrade the stylus. You can put a wide groove stylus on this if you wanted to, although you wouldn't really want to because it doesn't do 3 speeds. It only does 2 speeds. But you could if you wanted to. It does have this annoying lift. There's no cueing lever. If you look back here, there's no cueing lever. So people with shaky hands don't have the luxury of lifting gently up and down the tone arm. You have to handle the actual lift. And the way to do it is not to lift up and down, because even if you don't have shaky hands, that would be hard. The trick is to push back. And that gives you a little bit of leverage to have some, smooth action with it. A little bit. Anyway, enough to function with it. Okay, let's give it a little bit of test and see how it's performing a year and a half later. Okay, so it does use a 12-volt power adapter. I don't think this is the original one, but it should work fine. I have a tendency of losing those things, so that I borrow them for other projects. Okay, let's leave it in the stop position. Let's start with the tracking force so we can belay all of the, it's going to damage your records nonsense, which it will not. I can tell you ahead of time. Alrighty, let's try this. All right, now we're talking. That's right about where I like to track. And this is miles away from anything that's going to damage. So we've put that to rest. We don't need to talk about that. Yet somebody will still mention, Crosley is just going to ruin your vinyl. Don't get this. Get a Technics 1200. That's like saying, that tricycle isn't going to get you across town so fast. You should get a Lamborghini. That's a really good analogy right there. Next, let's see how this thing is doing on speed control. Now, you may be saying, why did they put that speed switch way out in the middle of no man's land when it doesn't, need to be when it's not anywhere near the platter? Well, I just answered that by putting a record there. It's just so I can get far enough away that you can access it with a 12-inch record. This is not a record, though. This is a strobe disc, so we're going to use this to verify the speed. In order to do that, I need to dim the sun by closing the blinds and get a closer light with some internal light source splashing onto the surface. And we will tell real quick if this thing is spinning accurately still a year and a half after its first, use for me. Flipping it on, which helps, we can see very clearly the speed accuracy. We're going to look right here on this band. And as you can clearly see, those lines look like they're marching to the left. This is a strobe effect that you get with the stroboscopic disc. And it's much clearer on camera than it is to the eye. The eye, it kind of looks like a blur. You can still see it if you sort of transfix yourself on it, but looking through the camera lens is very, very helpful. In this case, the shutter speed doesn't, negatively impact things. It actually helps. And as you can see, those lines marching slightly left indicates this unit is a little bit off speed. In actuality, it's moving a little fast. So if it marches to the left like that, it's a tad bit fast. However, as soon as you drop the needle, that's going to introduce drag, which will probably counteract the slight speed increase. Even if that wasn't the case, this is so minimal you wouldn't be able to hear a difference. Okay, with that speed selector switch, I'm going to 45, and now we're looking at this band, which is the one in the middle there. And you can see that it's kind of going back and forth, back and forth. Why is it doing that? Well, electric motors do not put out consistent speeds. No electric motors do, for the most part. And if you don't have a speed control turntable, which a portable and entry level isn't going to have, if it doesn't have quartz lock, if it doesn't have servo control or a technology similar, the electric motor is going to speed up, slow down in little incremental movements known as cogging. As you can see there, it's kind of herky-jerky. But again, that's so minuscule that you would not be able to notice it. And I am very impressed, actually, because this thing's pretty much deadlocked at 45 RPMs with accurate speed. So the speed is good. Okay, so as you can tell, the sound has changed. You can hear my bird. You can probably hear my furnace because it decided now would be a great time to make noise. But these are real life conditions, right? This isn't a laboratory. This is a home. So what's it going to be like with the furnace on and the bird cheeping? I mean, that's a real life scenario. This being a copyrighted song, I have to be very careful. We're not going to play too much of this, but I've got some Enoch Light, a different record than we usually use, to listen to in a minute. But let's try this just for a split second.
Brand new shirt. Let's see. My baby said goodbye today. I can take her.
Okay. Let's go ahead and flip the record over. And give it a lot. I should have started with the other record. I'm sorry. We don't use 45s enough on this on this channel. I wish we used more. So I'm gonna try to endeavor to do more 45s.
But they wouldn't laugh if they only knew that I.
Okay, so it does sound fairly harsh and bright, but 45s, tell me what you think. I always think 45s sound a little bit brighter and harsher than a 33. Oftentimes they use styrene, back to my previous comment on styrene. And with a styrene record, there's, usually it's supposed to be quieter if it's in good condition, but those styrene records wear out and sometimes they don't sound as good. This is how you destroy your label, hunting around for that spindle. So yeah, this is an interesting one. I don't know if I've ever had this on the channel. I might have years ago, but it's a Command record, stereo, 35 millimeter. So basically they use 35 millimeter film with magnetic tracks on it to record high fidelity audio. This was like 1960, 1961. So this was, audiophile high-end stuff back in the early days of the vinyl LP, the relatively early days. So let's go ahead. We're at 33 RPM. We're going to give this record a dusting. Some people can't stand Command records. They think they sound terrible. Others think they're wonderful. But it has Enoch Light in his orchestra, so it should give us the ability to listen without any copyright issues. So let's do that just right now. Soundtrack to North by Northwest. It's harsh. I mean, it's not as warm and vibrant as you can get from this. My guess is it's a limitation of the speakers. They're probably using pretty small 1, 2, or maybe 3 watt speakers, which is a bummer. They could make this sound a lot better because the cartridge is fine, The basic design is fine, but some beefier speakers would help. It's not terrible, but it sounds pretty harsh. Let me know in the comments what you think. What are you guys hearing? Also, with the speakers so close together, it's going to be hard to get stereo separation unless you stick your head, it's even closer than we're listening to it now. I stood right behind the camera to see if I could hear any stereo separation. I really couldn't. You guys are already probably thinking what I'm thinking. This thing needs a tone control. I wasn't planning on doing this, but I'm not as familiar with the sound profile of this record. Maybe that harshness has more to do with the recording than it does with the record player. So let me grab a record that I know is very full and rich, and let's give that a listen. So as a quick aside, we're going to listen to the Power Snap. This is actually a radio station record from probably the late 80s. Yeah, 89, 1990. Now, these are cool, and surprisingly, if you want to collect radio records, they're available by the thousands. I mean, you can go to a Second and Charles. Turns out Books A Million is a completely different concept. I learned that recently, but same company, different name, different store too. But anyway, if you have a Second and Charles or a similar shop, I've seen hundreds upon hundreds of radio station records, and as you can see, there's only 2 songs on this thing. This thing is modulated for really good sound quality. This is a 33 RPM record. But the thing about it is, the reason why these are in such good condition sometimes is they were probably played once, dubbed to cart, and then, never used again. So this has probably been played once. This record sounds phenomenal, by the way. Very copyrighted. Got to be careful here, but let's listen and see if the tonality issues were the record or the record player. Still sounds pretty tinny. Okay. Cursory listen, I know, but I'm pretty confident that, it is the record player that has that sound profile more so than the recording. Plus, we heard it with Ray Stevens, too. So, I think we've given it, a good second listen. In short, I would recommend it. It's not without its flaws, but it is definitely cool, and it definitely fills a void, a much needed void for quality portables in the vinyl space. All right, you guys, I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. So I mentioned early on that there was sort of some bad news about this turntable with a bit of a silver lining. So here it is. It's been discontinued, and that's a huge bummer because this is a cool record player, both it and its cousin, the Bermuda, which is basically the same thing. Some minor styling differences with the addition of legs in the case of the Bermuda is gone, and it's missing from the Crosley website. And if you look on Amazon, which I'll put a link down below, it is available, but at a very high price, which means that somebody's got some new old stock they're hanging on to and in price gouging. So it's available if you want to pick this up. The silver lining is, though, it's coming back. I spoke with Crosley early today in preparation for this show. I was like, wait a minute, why are you guys getting rid of this? This is cool. And so they've pulled it off temporarily. They hope to release it in the near future. Again, this isn't confirmed, but this is what I heard through the grapevine unofficially. It looks like they may be releasing it in the coming months with some new colors, which would be cool. I have no idea what they would be. And it's going to feature the new Crosley NP15 cartridge and stylus, which we reviewed previously. So it ought to be interesting. All right, my friends, that is going to do it for today's show. Thank you so much for making time in the middle of this busy week. Although, thank God we're at hump day, right? I mean, this week is cruising, which is great because I've had a string of long weeks lately. I don't know about you, but I cannot wait for the weekend. I got projects lined up. I just bought a camera for use on I was really inspired by Via Westlife's recent video where he shot the video on a tube camera. And I've toyed with that idea before. So I picked up like this 80s super chunky Zenith VHS camera. In fact, it's the same camcorder that Marty uses in Back to the Future. His is the JVC variant. It's actually the same camcorder with a different shell. So I picked it up, but it's not working. So I need to do some surgery on that machine. And I hope to feature it in its own review video. And I would also like to shoot some shows with that. But I'm excited. I already got my eyes on the weekend. Can't wait for it. But thank you for joining us today. Hit us with a thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't done so already. We got new merch down below. We've got all kinds of cool stuff in the description, so check that out. But anyway, we will see you next time.